Hey, this is going to be my last mission tutorial for my tournament in Spain. I'm going to the Spanish Championships, and this mission is going to be the mission that they play at the finals. I don't know if I'm going to get it to play it because it's only the top 8. After 80 players have been through 3 games, the top 8 will get to play this final mission, and it is control and keep. Let's go. So, control and keep. Control and keep is an objective mission where you have 4 objectives. There are 2 in each player's half, I think it is. It's really difficult to. It might be player's deployment zone, but I think it's their player half. So I get to place 1 in my own half and 1 in my opponent's, and he then does the same. You get 3 victory points per objective you hold. You get 2 victory points per tank you kill, and you get 1 victory point per infantry per other unit you kill. So a variant of key positions with a lot of kill points in it. Mission parameters. There's no preparatory bombardment. You do get alternate deployment in your deployment zone, which means that the defender will set up the first unit, then the attacker, then the defender, then the attacker, which benefits armies that have more units than the opponent because they can counter deploy, right? You can also hold something back in reserve if you want to. You can do forward deployment, you can do outflanking, and you can deploy hidden. So I think you should always, if you can, always deploy everything hidden because it doubles your cover bonus, right? There is a secondary objective in the center. This is worth 10 bonus kill points, which at that point might be very important because they're not actually part of how you win the mission, but they will be the secondaries. So there will be some of the final 8, right? There'll be half of them who potentially are on all wins at that point. So the secondaries will really matter because they'll determine whether or not you get a prize. So how to win that? You can go get the objectives, but that would need some of the objectives clump up, at least 3 of them, right? Because you're going to need to have more than 50% of the objectives in order to be sure of a win. So you need a clump of 3 objectives that are fairly close. Now that is difficult because the opponent is of course setting down objectives as well. But I mean, if he does deploy 1 objective fairly close to where you can get to deploy your 2 other objectives, then yeah, that might be possible. You can deny objectives, which means you're going to have some fast movers that can move down into the opponent's zone and just deny objectives turn 4 or 5. That might be possible. You can hold your own objectives, but that will only get you to a draw, so not really an option. Or you can play it as kill points because, I mean, 1 victory point per kill is still 1 victory point, and that might get you enough, right? Because if I go back here, look, even tanks, if you can kill a tank, that's even better, but I don't think I can. I don't have enough anti-tank on me. But, I mean, 3 victory points per objective, but 1 per unit you kill. So if I just hold my own objectives and kill a few units, then I should be good. And that should be potentially more safe against some armies, depending on what I'm facing here. So, get the objectives. The plan would be try to place the objectives in the enemy zone very close to the center so that I can push the combat into that central zone. Maybe leaving some units holding enemy objectives in my own zone, because if my opponent is clever, he's going to deploy 1 of the objectives way down in a corner. When I deploy my objectives near the center, he's going to deploy it way in a corner. And then he's going to try and outflank and jump onto it. So I'm going to have to leave some defenders on that objective. And then push all the rest of my army to the center of the table to claim both of the objectives that I get to place near the center, and also take the secondary in the center. This means that the enemy objective in my zone is pretty vulnerable to outflanking, which is bad. But I might see if he outflanks before I do anything else. So we shall see. You can also try and deny the objectives. So again, the objectives, I would try and place them clumped together as close together as possible, rush the clump with most of my army, and just try and rush other objectives with my fast movers, motorcycles, whatever. Turn 6, try and sort of contest everything. Contesting objectives deep into the enemy deployment zone is rather difficult, though, so if he's clever, he will deploy his objectives way back away from me, but that will mean that he spreads out a bit, which is good for me for other things. So holding my own would mean dividing my army into two halves, one that takes my own objective and one that takes the objective that my opponent puts in my half. May not be a good idea and will only get me to a draw. But if I play this as a kill point mission, then the two objectives that I get to place needs to go as close to the center as possible, which is the same for all of these, as close to the center as possible. Most of my army then needs to push the center, to hold those two objectives and the secondary objective. From that point, once I dominate the center, I can start to decide where I want to push. I'm going to push for kills. I will need 2 to 3 of my enemy's units to kill that much more, and I will need a couple of units to hold my own objective in my own zone. Otherwise, I'm going to be outflanked, and my opponent is going to try and catch up to me on objectives. This should play to my strengths, both as a player and as my list strength. So I think this is the safest plan, and this is also the plan where I can most easily deploy elements of the other plans for this. So I don't, as I said, I don't know if I'm going to get to play this mission, but if I do, I think this plan is the one. Play kill points and then start looking at contesting objectives, as many as possible, so that my opponent doesn't win on objectives. Yeah. That was my plan. I have no idea how it all went. I am hopeful, but I am not gonna claim that I'm going to win this. We shall see. Anyways, see you in the next video. Cheers.